It was just after midnight on a Friday night. My husband was absorbed in an online game in the living room while I sat at the dining table, working on some tasks I had brought home. Out of nowhere, he casually suggested we should live apart. Startled, I asked him why. Although we hadn't been getting along well lately, I felt I deserved to hear his reasons. My name is Megan. At the stroke of midnight, as I turned 35, my husband, fully aware of my ongoing infertility treatments, dropped a bombshell. I was so taken aback that my mind went blank. Without tearing his eyes away from the screen, he said, "You just turned 35, right? Even if you got pregnant now, it would be a high-risk pregnancy. So, I've decided to give up on having kids with you. That's why I want to live separately and move in with my mom." What? I don't understand. I was baffled as to why giving up on having kids meant he wanted to live apart from me and move in with his mother. We got married 2 years ago. While I wanted to enjoy our newlywed life for a while, my husband was eager to start a family. As the youngest of 3 brothers, each with 3 kids, he was constantly reminded by his siblings, it's best to have kids while you're still young and energetic. So, we decided to try for a baby. However, a year passed and we were still not blessed with a child. One day, my husband said, "You should get checked out." "For what? Why?" I asked, taken aback. "We can't have a kid. There must be something wrong with you," he yelled. Although his accusation upset me, I decided to visit the gynecologist just in case. The results revealed that I did have a condition that made it difficult to conceive. Without any symptoms, this news was a huge shock. The gynecologist explained that while it would be challenging, natural pregnancy was still possible. Despite this, I felt a heavy weight on my heart as I prepared to tell my husband. That evening, over dinner, I calmly shared the results with him. He seemed almost triumphant as he said, "I knew it was you. But the doctor said I could still get pregnant," I muttered. He glared at me and declared, "It's been impossible, and it's not going to change." His unilateral conclusion filled me with anger. "You could have an issue too, you know," I retorted. That struck a nerve, causing him to raise his voice. "Megan, it's obvious what the problem is here. How dare you try to blame me?" With a resounding bang, he slammed his fists on the table in frustration. I recoiled in surprise. "You're just a failure. Can't even conceive a child." With that cutting remark, he stormed off to the bedroom. Left alone, tears streamed down my face as I washed dishes. I knew he was reacting out of shock and frustration. If only we could conceive, maybe then we could find happiness together again. With determination, I resolved to redouble my efforts to conceive and regain my husband's love. Regular visits to the gynecologist became routine, but with each visit, my anxiety mounted. Despite focusing intensely on my most fertile days, success eluded me, fueling my stubborn resolve. One morning, I ventured, "Let's try again tonight, okay?" To my surprise, he met my suggestion with disapproval. "Isn't it a bit awkward to talk about tonight so early in the morning?" Embarrassment flushed my cheeks. Reflecting on it, I realized it might seem strange, but we were a couple. It should feel natural. Suppressing my mixed emotions, I tried gently persuading him. "Don't you want a child too?" But my husband shot back, "I never really wanted a child. It's too expensive. My brothers always said a real man has a wife and kids, so I thought I'd give it a shot. But now that it's not happening because of you, I have a respectable excuse not to care anymore." From then on, whenever I approached my husband, he would dismiss me with excuses like, "I'm busy" or "I'm tired." Yet I was just as busy and exhausted from work. Each rejection shattered my pride as a woman. Lately, my husband had become engrossed in online gaming, staying up late into the night. Our intimate life had faded, and even our daily conversations had dwindled to almost nothing. It seemed my husband had lost interest not only in having children but in me as well. Despite this, I persisted in visiting the gynecologist. During my infertility treatments, I was struck by the number of couples at the clinic. It specialized in infertility, always packed with patients. Waiting 2 to 3 hours, even with an appointment, was normal. Seeing so many others struggling with the same issue gave me a strange comfort. Sometimes I would witness a couple emerging from a consultation room, the woman tenderly touching her still flat belly, her husband by her side. Perhaps they had just received news of a pregnancy. I longed for that to be me. I wanted a child desperately. I wanted to regain my husband's love and find happiness again. My hope for a child began to dim when I was told that further treatment would be difficult without my husband undergoing testing. I found myself at a crossroads, unsure of what to do next. Maybe it was all impossible after all. The journey home from the gynecology clinic always left me with a painful ache, threatening tears. As I stepped onto the main road, I glanced up and was startled by the sight of an elderly woman in flamboyant attire. The surprise halted my tears. She appeared to be in her 70s, with thick makeup and a boldly colorful dress that clashed with her surroundings. I didn't recognize her at first, but there was something oddly familiar about her. Could it be my mother-in-law? Despite living in the same city, we seldom crossed paths, and this woman bore no resemblance to the modest image I recalled. Yet the distinctive mole on her cheek left me certain. My mother-in-law had undergone a dramatic transformation contrary to her usual simple appearance, and it caught me off guard. I faded into the crowd, silently observing. My mother-in-law was a force of nature. She held herself to lenient standards while scrutinizing others with harsh judgment, hurling insults that could leave anyone speechless. She favored my husband, her youngest, with unabashed affection, contrasting sharply with her treatment of her other children, whom she often dismissed as mere financial burdens. This disparity fueled resentment, especially from my brother-in-law. Last year, when my father-in-law succumbed to cancer, discussions arose about her moving in with one of her children. Both her eldest and second sons, along with their families, vehemently refused. I assumed the responsibility would fall to us, but she asserted her independence, declaring she would live alone as long as she remained healthy. Whether fueled by bitterness over being rejected or her innate character, her reaction to my father-in-law's passing was explosive. She publicly accused her sons of ingratitude, accusing them of financial exploitation, and claimed the lion's share of inheritance without considering an equitable division. Despite numerous attempts by my husband and brother-in-law to suggest dividing the inheritance according to legal guidelines, she remained steadfast, refusing to yield, and no one could sway her. Even I received a cold dismissal from her with words like, "I have no interest in getting along with you, so stay away from my house." Compared to the fiery conflicts between her and my brother-in-law and their wives, I found myself in a relatively peaceful position. One day, I spotted my mother-in-law disappearing into a shop without noticing me. I couldn't reconcile this with the woman I knew, and I found myself staring at the signboard of the building she had entered. That night, I debated whether to tell my husband about his mother's actions, but ultimately decided against it. After all, she was an adult, now single without my father-in-law, and entitled to her personal choices. It wasn't my place to criticize her interests or decisions. Since then, I've caught glimpses of her a few times but always pretended not to notice. Months passed, and as my birthday approached, my husband suddenly proposed that we live separately. Curious and somewhat suspicious, I asked him, "Have you met someone else?" I couldn't help but wonder if my mother-in-law was just an excuse and if he might be planning to remarry. Yet he seemed to spend most of his days at home absorbed in video games, making it unlikely that he was seeing anyone else. I mulled over the possibilities in my mind. Strangely, I felt oddly calm, almost on the verge of laughter. My husband, on his part, responded seriously, "Well, there's this girl in my gaming group who I find interesting, but it's all online. It could just as well be a guy pretending to be a woman, which makes the whole thing rather absurd. He's rational enough to make decisions, so why would he suddenly suggest separation? I just don't understand," I thought to myself as my husband reiterated, "I just prefer living with my mom over living with you." Confusion and hurt filled me. Why would he choose his mother over me? Do you resent me? Has our love vanished? I searched desperately for answers that could soothe my heart and posed my next question to him. As soon as the words escaped my lips, a pang of pain shot through my chest. Did he no longer need me, the woman unable to bear a child due to infertility? Holding back tears, I awaited his response. "No, not really." "Huh?" My husband's response catches me off guard. "Didn't I mention this before? I'm not focused on having kids anymore. We need to find another way to secure our finances." "Money?" I echo his unexpected words. He nods solemnly and explains, "It's about my mom's inheritance." I struggle to see the connection and feel increasingly perplexed. My brothers are opportunistic. They'll try to claim a larger share of mom's inheritance by arguing they have more children. I won't let that happen. Who's being opportunistic here? I'm taken aback but choose to hold my tongue. "But your mom is perfectly healthy. Isn't it premature to discuss her inheritance?" "That's why my mom dislikes you, but she dotes on me. If I move in with her now, it'll be advantageous for securing the inheritance. She likely has a significant portion of my dad's estate stashed away for herself, so I won't have to work hard and can live comfortably." With no children of our own, we need financial security for our old age, my husband explained, his tone almost mocking. I grasped the implication and was stunned. So the reason my husband had wanted a child was. So you wanted a child to ensure someone would care for you in old age. And since that's not possible, you're now aiming for a larger share of your mom's inheritance. I hoped my suspicions were mistaken. I confronted my husband, hoping for a different response, but once again, he dashed my expectations. Of course, he declared, children are meant to care for their parents. If I move in with mom now, I might secure the entire inheritance. The strong bond between Tom and his mother suddenly made sense to me. It seemed to overshadow everything else. There was no hint of fairness or sharing in his words. I was left speechless as Tom continued, almost monologuing now. Once mom passes, I'll return to live with you. While you can't have children, you manage the household impeccably and bring home a good paycheck as a full-time worker. All right, then let's get a divorce, my true feelings burst out, cutting him off. Who would tolerate such treatment, agree to live apart, and then reconcile as if nothing happened? Tom was making a mockery of me. I knew his position as the youngest of three had spoiled him, but this selfish scheme of his was beyond unacceptable and reprehensible. In that moment, all the love I once felt for Tom vanished completely. Let's hire a lawyer to fairly divide our assets and go our separate ways. Huh? Divorce? I never mentioned divorce. We can simply live apart. Hiring a lawyer seems excessive. Although Tom appeared taken aback at first, my resolve seemed to sway him. No, you'll feel better being single too. I won't be satisfied unless we divide everything equitably through legal means. Bringing in a third party to handle the assets will prevent any future issues, right? Tom smirked smugly and relented. You make a fair point. All right, if I secure a good share of mom's inheritance, my retirement will be comfortable, and I might even consider remarrying. Just make sure you don't regret it, I replied pointedly. Likewise, don't count your chickens before they hatch, he retorted, and be sure you won't regret your decisions. The following day, I received a lawyer recommendation from a friend who had been through a divorce and promptly sought consultation. I also informed our landlord that only Tom would be vacating the premises and arranged for movers. As I made these arrangements, I overheard Tom on the phone with his mother, expressing his desire to live with her and fulfill his duties as a son. It shocked me to realize he had proposed separation to me without first seeking his mother's approval. According to Tom, his mother was thrilled about the prospect of living with him. It seemed she had certain requests or things to discuss with him. Surprisingly, preparations for the divorce progressed swiftly. Initially planning for a 50-50 asset split, my skilled lawyer managed to negotiate alimony, securing 70% of the assets for me. If Tom's selfish actions led to her separation, I felt justified in claiming the share. Without hesitation, just 3 days after finalizing the divorce and with Tom returning to his parents' home, I was relaxing in my apartment when my phone rang. It was my ex-husband, Tom. The moment I answered, he pleaded, "Please help me, let's get married again," he sobbed. There was no inheritance after all. My mom squandered everything on male strippers. She's broke now. What's worse, she's buried in debts and has even mortgaged her house. Oh, really? That's rough. Sounds like your mom has a thing for those strip clubs, huh? I chuckled softly. I had witnessed my ex-mother-in-law frequenting those establishments, their exorbitant prices boldly displayed on billboards. I'd seen her enter several times, unmistakably spending a small fortune there. Since Tom became engrossed in online gaming and stopped visiting his parents, his mother seemed to have fallen into this nightlife scene. She depleted her late husband's inheritance and her retirement savings, now drowning in debt from numerous loans. Why did you tell me about this? I didn't see it as my place to interfere in people's hobbies. I never stopped you from playing video games, did I? Tom was momentarily speechless and swiftly changed the subject. She's been pressuring me to take out loans in my name, but that's impossible. Can't you give me some money from the divorce settlement? If we were still married, it would be our money. No, I responded firmly. Why not? You used to love me, didn't you? Your husband is in trouble. I loved you when we were married, but once you suggested separating, all those feelings vanished. It's clear now that you're only interested in my money. Why would I consider getting back together with you? That's not fair. Mom is demanding my entire paycheck. She insists it's only right for a child to support their parents. She was always good to me. Tom whimpered pitifully, but his expectation that he should always be the center of attention and that everyone else should cater to him mirrored his mother's attitude. They truly were two of a kind. They brought this situation upon themselves, and I felt no obligation to offer assistance. We're divorced now, Tom. We're strangers. Please handle your family's issues on your own, I said calmly, flashing a reassuring smile. I ended the call and blocked his number. Then I promptly dialed each of my former brothers-in-law. Although I had planned to update them once things settled down after the divorce, it seemed prudent to inform them sooner rather than later. I recounted everything Tom had disclosed about his mother and the events leading to our separation. My ex-brothers-in-law expressed sympathy and assured me they would confront Tom about his actions. Later, I received word from one of them that Tom's brothers had paid a visit to their parents' home, resulting in quite a scene. Hearing this, I decided to change my door locks as a precaution and ultimately made the decision to move. Cutting ties completely seemed best. While browsing real estate listings, I came across a listing for Tom's parents' house being put up for sale. Curious about Tom and his mother's fate, I briefly considered asking my former brothers-in-law for updates but ultimately decided to focus on moving forward and severing all connections with the past. I plan to move to a pet-friendly apartment and relish a peaceful, carefree life, possibly with a charming feline companion.